Chapter. Okay. First item on the agenda is the minutes for last month's meeting. Everyone get a chance to look them over. Any comments about the minutes? Apart from what Michelle already meant. Yeah, I think that the corrected minutes are in the packet. I think Michelle sent them out to everybody. Michelle's here. All right. So no comments about the minutes. Approved. Information items for discussion. First item is the Hanson Court streetlight pillars. So Samantha Bryan, our borough manager, couldn't be at the meeting, but she did prepare a memo for us. I don't know, Michelle, would you rather I just read the memo and proceed from there, or do you want to take the role of Samantha for this meeting?
I can help answer questions, but
okay.
Samantha did a really good job at creating that memo.
Okay.
And the agreements are included in the packet as well. So.
All right. So let me just run down the recommendations. So the residents of Hanson Court brought to the attention of the borough that the light pillars at the intersection of Hanson Court and Montgomery are crumbling and a potential safety hazard. So this is something that had been discussed last year at Borough Council, and we had agreed to take on responsibility for those lights. Reading it from the memo, it's my recommendation that for the sake of future maintenance and safety, the borough should remove the pillars on Hanson Court and replace them with streetlights of a similar style to those found elsewhere on Hanson Court. Before we can do anything about them, the borough will need to craft an agreement with the two property owners abutting each pillar, noting the borough's ownership and maintenance responsibility. Next, a petition will need to be circulated to the residents of Hanson Court to ensure there is not opposition to the borough taking action on the pillars. As part of this letter, while the borough would not require the residents of Hanson Court to pay for the project, we could ask for voluntary contributions. So that is the proposal here. We have in the packet the proposed agreements with the two landowners and a petition to be circulated for Hanson Court. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would follow the manager's recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall you have any concerns with this plan?
No, I think it's a great. I'm glad we're bringing this to resolution. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is done because it's, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think we only have one page of the petition. We don't have all of the houses in Hanson Court on the petition, but it's just an oversight. I'm sure there's a petition somewhere which has everybody on it.
Yeah, hopefully there's no concern among residents. And then we'll do it. So.
Yeah, and I think it might be, in terms of voluntary contributions, I think the people who brought this to our attention ought to be the first ones we approach for a voluntary contribution.
Well, it looks like it's in the light that will go to all the in the letter that will go to all the property owners.
Well, if we have one or two in hand already, it would be, it would be good to say, well, the neighbor has contributed. You should chip in as well, but these are voluntary, of course. So, all right, it sounds like everybody's on board with this plan, so we can recommend it go forward to
Yes.
full council.
Just full council, I guess.
We have to approve those. I mean, it'll go into the consent agenda probably, right? Because we have to approve those agreements with the landowners. It's a,
okay.
Or do we? Yeah, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm assuming we have to approve it.
I believe Solicitor Walko had mentioned that it was a draft, and if there was any changes that needed to be made or anything to discuss before finalizing this.
Okay. Well, I don't think we see any need for that. So if he could move it forward without further counsel, that's fine. Okay, next item is the Haverford Avenue bike pilot, which is up and running. So the memo from Samantha was installed on November 24th. This includes traffic monitoring equipment from DVRPC. Public kickoff and promotion event was held on December 4th, which resulted in valuable feedback. Project is expected to continue until spring 2022, when it will be stopped for the stormwater construction on that area of Haverford Avenue. Once stopped, I recommend the Infrastructure Committee review the feedback and data gathered to determine if it wishes to do a permanent installation and how to design said installation. All right, so we've had a few weeks of having this running. I know I had some comments that were sent to me by Kimberly Bezak of the Cycling Club. Does anybody on the committee have any comments about it? I know you've used it, Michelle.
There was a...
What?
I know you've used it a couple times.
I've given, yeah, literally a couple times. I'm not such a mad cyclist, but, no, I mean, I like the idea that we're trying to pilot. I know that I think there's been some challenges with respect to the hay bales and, but I think, that's part of the price you pay for trying to do a pilot, inexpensively, is materials are not, just getting an idea of it. One thing I will say is, at our meeting last week, Carol Marie Scanlon in the public comment period mentioned that do not enter red sign, there's sort of been another sign with a bicycle, picture of a bicycle on it visually, is confusing to cars. And I think it might be. I mean, I haven't seen anybody try to turn around, but I did see a car the other day actually just slow down pretty much to a stop at that point. And I think they were like, oh, am I not allowed to go in here? I understand the intent is to stop bicyclists from going the wrong way down the bike path, but because of its location of a red and the size of it, I think cars are kind of reading that as this applies to me. So, I don't know, it's almost more like a public health and safety kind of issue, Rob. It's not somewhere between our committees, but I wonder, what do you think?
Are we talking about that way at the end near the bank here?
Yeah.
Isn't there one right here? No, cyclist. I don't remember. No, it's right here. I think, isn't the other, I don't know. I don't remember where it is.
All right, so are we talking, is it signage at these intersections that you're?
This is one sign.
I wish I could remember
It's a
exactly.
little confusing.
Okay, yeah.
So it's going to be written down.
Is it the one? It's the one at the far end.
Well, I mean, one thing is if it's really intended for the cyclists, perhaps it can be moved to the other side.
Or it could be angled. So
Yeah, because it does
faces-
really, if you're driving down, I don't remember exactly where I was, but I was like looking at it going, yeah, if I didn't know this was the bike pilot and I was driving down here, I might very well be like, oh, wait, is this a do not enter? So
So if you can verify where my suggestion would be, if it's intended for the cyclist and it's confusing the cars, would be to shift it over a
Yeah.
little bit.
here's what I'll do. I'll go back down and I'll take pictures and then I'll email you the
Okay.
pictures of the location of where I
Okay.
took it. And you can double back on that. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have?
Yeah, the EAC wrote to endorse the pilot and a more permanent bike infrastructure solution from their vantage point, and I believe the memo is shared with the committee.
Okay. What is Public Works seeing? I know you guys are in charge of the maintenance of it.
Yeah,
What are you seeing on it?
So when it first kicked off, we did see that a lot of the bales, were being hit intentionally, by cars, just from folks who were not so pleased, to give up that much, parking, and it is tight there. So folks were hitting the bales intentionally. I was watching people stop in their cars and push bales over so they could have more room. That's why all of the bales keep inching further from the line, because cars and people are pushing them over. So, it's been quite the challenge on our end. Obviously with it going up in the fall, having to clean in between the bales and the Amtrak hillside there has to be done by hand now because the sweeper, can't fit up there. So that did tack on, a couple hours each month on our end. Other than that, we just haven't seen many folks in it. We see more joggers and pedestrians in the morning use it. I haven't seen a lot of folks actually ride it on their bikes, maybe 2, 3, 4 tops since it's been operational. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for trying it out, but, you know, I just, you know, the hay bales, I just think, you know, for future pilots that we try, you know, we just need to think of a different, you know, kind of more semi-permanent fixture to put in there, because the hay bales are just being moved.
Being mistreated.
Thank you.
I'm actually kind of encouraged by the fact that cars feel like they're used to that wide open road, and you go fast. A
Yeah.
great way to slow down traffic is to narrow the road. That's kind of one of the intentions of that. It's wide enough for you to drive, but you can't go as fast as you're used to.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know if the DVRPC is collecting information now on the usage of it. I don't know if that includes speed. I'm not sure if they have speed tracking, I guess, part of that.
Oh, on the
that
street,
system.
yeah, I don't know.
But they should be able to tell us, you know, how many bikes are using it. That's
Can
part
ask
of
the cycle
data
club, they
collection.
know that, it's a good question.
Yeah. And I mean, it is not the ideal season to put this in place, but yeah,
Right.
we were originally going to do it on the other end of the pipe replacement project on Haverford, but that got delayed to the spring, so I felt like this was the time we had to try it out.
And now this pilot is expected to be up until spring,
Yeah, until we start the work
until
on
the
it.
construction.
Yeah, that'll be a natural endpoint for it.
That was obviously, you know, our main concern with the bales is, you know, ice and snow plowing. So either we'll need volunteers to come and move all the bales up to the embankment, or, you know, and that's also where we would pile all of our piles of snow at, that we truck from uptown. You know, if we get, you know, a significant amount of snow, it all comes down here by the turnout there at the bump out. So we'll have to locate, you know, another spot where we can place the snow at from uptown.
Well, or we need,
How many bales are out there? Approximately?
Roughly 70.
Yeah, a lot.
how much space would they take if you just stacked them up?
Yeah, there should be a plan for that, and I think that asking for volunteers to help with that is a reasonable thing to do, to ask.
Yeah, that's a, okay. Before we get the snow, we should brainstorm what's going to happen here.
Exactly.
So why don't you think about that and bring something to Samantha. And, we can ask the cycling club for volunteers and or provide it ourselves. Good to know. All right, I do have a couple concerns from the cycling club. I think that the main sort of safety, like immediate safety hazard, was the manhole cover between Dudley and Essex that had a lot of they describe it as potholes around it, but it's a rough area and you don't really want to bike through that. They were asking to see if that could be, temporarily patched.
Yeah, so that had just been patched. We had the paving project over on Chestnut.
Okay.
So we actually grabbed the yard of hot asphalt from them and patched up there and a few other bad spots.
Okay.
Here.
Great. Let's see, there are other requests. So they have other requests which we should discuss. I mean, the more we add to this, kind of the heavier it becomes. So I think I'm more interested in making sure that this is safe and making sure that this is safe and functional rather than perfect, let's say, or so let's keep that in mind. So, the request was for reflective elements to apply to the straw bales, preventing them being struck. I think your suggestion is that people are seeing them fine.
Yeah, I mean, especially after all of the new LEDs went in, the lights here, Haverford is lit up well. So we did install some at the first few, when you come right past Essex, the first 3 or 4 bales have something in them.
Okay.
But after that, everything is crystal clear. If you're hitting it, it's intentional at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if you can see the first few, you should be able to see that. That makes sense to me. I don't know if that'll... Okay. The green cross bikes could benefit from the addition of a small white bike stencil because it's not clear what they are. the green crossways.
Yeah, I had responded to her and said that I'd be hesitant to keep applying more paint to the roadways here. You know, the other one that we did the other year, you know, all of those lines are still clear as day. So, you know, I kind of left, if I can get, you know, the okay from someone above me to keep, you know, applying, you know, the paint markings to the, you know, the asphalt, then I will.
I mean, I think it's true that it's not clear what that marking is for, but I'm not sure how much adding more signals to it.
Later on, I saw that you had commented that the road paint that you're using can't be used this time of year. With this stencil paint's a different kind?
Yeah, so that would just be a spray paint. You know, they had asked about taking that white line up at the tunnel that separates the two turn lanes further down.
That's what you were talking about the thermoplast. Just different. Yeah,
I mean, I can see both points here. I don't,
What is it?
well, the suggestion is to add a stencil to the green, add a bike stencil to the, like the green
That's
crosswalks.
the same stencils that have been used elsewhere, this white, the white, but, right, so they were talking about adding one or something to each, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Where in the, we're talking about like the green.
The green
like,
cross, yeah, the green bike,
So like in the center?
cross
I
bikes,
don't
they're
know,
called.
that's what I was looking for, where would it go?
I'm not, so that green, as far as like roadway pavement marking, that green is the recognized bike movement
Yeah,
pavement marking. You know, according to PennDOT's pavement markings.
Okay. Well, perhaps we should stick with PennDOT's pavement markings. Like if PennDOT has a,
Green is a conflict zone between a bike and a vehicle. So that's where you see them, if you're like the bike lane going along the side of the road, and then like the bike lane comes over here as the turning lane goes across. That conflict, that's the conflict zone. So
yeah.
you are,
Downtown.
it's supposed to be a recognized pavement marking. It's that,
I'm not sure how recognized it is.
Well,
yeah, well, I mean, yeah,
You see them in Philadelphia a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's enough in Philadelphia that, you know, you sort of realize what it means by now, but around here, it's very little use.
Right.
Having a good marking, so I think, I don't know. I mean,
Opinion? All right, I mean, I think that the current,
could we?
Jeff's current opinion was to leave it as is. I don't know if we see a reason to remove it.
No, not necessarily. I mean, unless the idea is like if you're gonna put it on top of the existing green paint in the middle anyway, I mean, maybe we could authorize the bike club to do that, with volunteers if they wish to do it, because I don't wish to make any more work for you. Given the amount of time you're spending with the hay bales, I mean, I wouldn't mind that personally if the cycling club feels it would really improve the pilot to make that more clear. I would be fine if they did it, but I don't want to ask a couple questions.
Let me just.
That's my compromise.
All right, they have.
Position.
Yeah, so they're saying the transition at North Wynwood is a very tight turn. Widening temporary side path curb ramp and removing debris at the corner of planted bed of hedges would improve that. And I think that's a longer term project, trying to adjust the topography of North Wynwood. I think that was your thought as well. All right, so the other thing they asked for is several cars were observed pulling over and idling or parking for extended periods in the contraflow lane from Dudley to Conway. And I think your point was that there's no parking sign there.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few signs up there, and, you know, the cars that we observed there are either dropping off for Amazon or dropping off for food. So, I mean, I do understand, you know, it is an inconvenience to them, but, you know, it's out of our hands for Public Works to ask vehicles to move.
Okay. So the recommendation was for, all right, there are no parking signs there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's an enforcement measure.
perpetual battle of parked vehicles and bike lane.
Yeah. All right, I don't think I have, I mean, I see a lot of I think you've responded already that you're going to patch a lot of the pothole areas that were viewed as a hazard. We're going to work on figuring out what to do for snow. Any other comments on the bike lane pop-up? Okay. Moving on to action items for Borough Council. So we have the updated sidewalk maintenance regulations ordinance. Let's see here. Changes that were made include, I can find it. So they open, people are now allowed to put their garbage and their recycling and their leaf waste in there on the correct days. A lot of the things that we highlighted have been
Streets and sidewalks.
yeah. Okay, you've, sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
No, as a point, so now, part of this is the outdoor dining. It's like in this
It's incorporated
ordinance.
into it.
What did we do with the outdoor? I thought we moved that on to publish it for, I've lost track of procedurally where we are with that. We did something last week. I thought we voted to, not to pass the ordinance, but to advertise it. But yeah, as a standalone ordinance. So I'm a little.
So I think this is like, I think what he sent us is like a larger section of code, right? That includes the sidewalk ordinance and this one.
But
are
it's
gonna be in.
labeled like ordinance number blank, right? So it's going to be a standalone ordinance. I'm looking at the, so maybe the person to ask is John, I think, at this meeting, but I had a number of things on this, but they're not worth, well, John had some comments in here that we do need to talk about.
Yeah.
And I had some other questions and comments, but I put mine in the version that was in the, in the folder where all the meeting documents were, but I didn't know if that was a working copy or not. That's where I put them, because I didn't.
Why don't you raise your concerns now?
No. Because John has a number of comments and questions, like we need to decide.
Right.
I assume that we're intending to do that now.
Yes, I'm just trying to find John's note. Well, one of the questions that I do see was from Public Works. It was about the basketball hoops.
What?
About temporary basket. Maybe this one went to me. Do you want to go ahead, Jeff, and lay out the issue?
Yeah, so when it comes time to plow snow, trying to plow around them has become quite the hassle. It just ultimately leads to, excessive piles of snow, because generally those hoops are placed close to, the apron for the house, and then we end up just piling snow right at the base of someone's driveway, which, we try our best not to do, but with the hoop there, we kind of can't avoid it. So, we're asking that if temporarily they can be moved, off of, the asphalt either up to their house, so we can just have a clear open space.
So add a
to plow.
provision into this that requires people to do that. Okay, yes, I understand.
Yeah, now, obviously, spring through fall, it's fine, it doesn't affect us.
So you want them off the,
Off the street.
Off the street, off the right of way.
Off the street, off
and
the
they can't be
right
in
of
the
way.
sidewalk, so they have to.
Yeah, they'd have to
If
go
somebody
back
doesn't have a
up.
driveway, I don't know where they're gonna put, they're gonna need to make some provision for that, because I think that some people put them in the streets in front of their houses, but they don't actually have a driveway to put them into, so they're going to need to. I know one particular person, which is fine.
Put it on their lawn.
Right, that's what I'm thinking,
So,
there, we need to, I think we should add that, because, I can see that it's a problem, but maybe something we could think about doing is, if we know where they are putting, at least initially having some kind of sign, some kind of hang sign that we're gonna put on it to let people know
Yeah.
in advance, that way they'll get that, the other person are gonna know that it's not gonna be effective, because we're not gonna do it right.
Well, right now, there's no provision for having them in the street in the first
Right,
place.
that's
So we
the
ought
first
to
thing.
put in provision that says you're allowed to have it in the street, but it's take it out in the winter. I think that's the consensus where everybody thinks is
take it out in the winter or just remove it before snowfall, like? as it comes?
Remove it at the borough's request. I mean, well,
If it's in a snow emergency road, I mean, if it's not, can they put it on the other side of the street? If it's not a snow emergency road?
In a perfect world, we would like it all
Okay.
off the street. But
I mean, if it's between two parked cars on
Yeah,
a
yeah.
non-emergency.
yeah, then, in like a case like that, would be fine, but I don't want, it to be so difficult, for for folks to, see and read, if it's in this zone, it's okay, if it's here, it's not, So I'll go around and just get a hit list of where everything is and
I mean,
put it in zones for
It
snow.
seems like it needs to follow the rules of cars. Treat it like it's a car. You can't, if you have to move all your cars off that side of the street, you can't leave a basketball.
so it's only when
It's in the way.
there's, so it's only during a declared snow emergency.
Well, I don't know, no, I was proposing that as one way to view it, like, if you have
Well,
anything.
yeah, that's a good solution for now, and then I think we're gonna have a complete streets. We've talked about this with Samantha. We need to have a more comprehensive complete streets vision, for how to use the street space. Especially, these are conversations we're having with the parking committee, because, there's a lot more than just storing cars and storing basketball hoops.
Mhm.
We need to do stormwater bump outs, we need to do EV
Oh,
charging
yeah.
stations, and, so I can imagine
Yeah.
we'll get to that later, but for now, that sounds like a good solution.
You're right, there's gonna be a lot of things we have to think about with those features and snow plows.
Okay,
Yeah, but for now, that would make
Right.
it easier for John to draft something. He could just make clear that any kind of impediment, basketball hoop, hockey net, whatever it is, you gotta treat it like a car. It's just like having a car in the emergency room. Would that?
okay. All right, so that'll be our recommendation. We'll pass that along to John. All right, so I'm looking at the changes to the draft. I think one of the issues is the hedges along the side of the height limit for hedges along walkways. Right now, the zoning code is 4 feet.
Could we go through in the order of these things? Only because I'm afraid we're gonna, this is actually, I didn't realize how comprehensive this is. It's kind of huge, and he's got a lot of comments.
Where are you
in it.
seeing? So what, I don't know what you're
So
seeing.
his first comment was, the type was in 446-2B, where it talked about how quickly people need to have a duty to remove snow, ice, and ice from sidewalk.
Ms. Michelle, are you seeing full comments or just highlighted?
I'm
Yeah,
seeing
it's in-
comments.
Oh, where is this? Oh, I'm seeing
There's some
it.
Well, I think what happened is they did not get, they may not have been, if
Okay,
this
you
was
lead
turned
the way,
into,
you've got the comments.
if this was turned into a PDF to put
That's
in the
what it is.
packet, the comments may not have.
Okay, read us the
Print
comments.
the
I want you to
PDF,
point out.
highlighted.
comments. Because I only noticed this that's why
Okay.
I was asking. All right, I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so 446-2, duty to remove snow and ice, section B, right? It says it shall be the duty of all property owners with properties abutting public streets in the borough of Narberth not later than 24 hours after snow, ice, or sleet has ceased to fall to clear or cause to be clear, blah, blah, blah. So John said his alternative was within 12 hours after the same shall have ceased to fall or to form. This is very, very word language. Provided that snow or ice has ceased to fall or to be formed after 6 o'clock of any evening may be removed at any time before 10 of the next morning.
24 hours, much better.
He provided an alternative within 12 hours, as long as I guess unless it kept,
It's hard to tell how ice forms. I mean, if you're thinking of what's falling from the sky, that's pretty easy. So I'd vote for the simpler one.
although I think 24 hours is a little bit generous. I mean, do we really want this after the snow has
Yeah,
stopped? Do we
that's
really
what
want
I
24
thought.
hours to not be able to walk down the sidewalks?
I mean, I thought it said, doesn't it say on the sign, by the end of the storm? I forget the language.
Well, regardless, I think it should be from the end of the, whatever falling from the sky. I think that's a lot simpler to determine rather than when snow is forming.
There's one of those signs on my street, it's within 1 hour of the start of a snowstorm or snow
Okay.
event.
Wait.
So the sign on my
You
street
have
says
to clear the snow within 1 hour
you
of
have
the start?
to move your car.
No,
Oh, no, we're talking about
We've moved
clearing-
on.
shoveling.
Go back and sleep, Jeff.
But that's what I was thinking.
No,
I was
right.
thinking of the sign.
We were thinking about how soon are people required to clear their sidewalks in front of their houses after the snow has stopped falling? And this proposed ordinance says 24 hours, and that seems like
Okay,
a
so
long time to leave the sidewalks.
Your recommendation would be 12.
I don't know, what would be less than 24 hours? I mean, my recommendation would be less than 12, to be honest with you, but,
I mean, if people have to hire somebody, we gotta give them a chance to,
okay.
they can't do it themselves.
Well, then 12. I don't know about this other, if John wants to put this other stuff about 6 in the evening next morning, I think
It's
that's
too
more
much.
complicated. So you're just saying, go with 12.
Rob, do you have a feeling on this? Like, apparently there's a bunch of things
Yeah, I mean,
to deal with on this.
but 12 is
It's
fine.
not that many.
Okay, let's call it 12.
All right.
People think it's a hardship, they can,
I get, yeah, no, I'm taking notes and we can get this to John, I guess. So what else does he have? Sorry, my screen's got some. What's his next? His next comment, then is when we're getting to sidewalk signs and sandwich boards in certain districts, which is 446-7.
okay.
The proposed ordinance says, basically just says you can't put signs, banners, similar advertising devices. Why is this new here? All of it, so I don't know. He says, as the zoning code already permits sidewalk signs, sandwich boards in certain districts, I would not provide additional regulations here or outside the zoning code. I think we had talked about adding sandwich boards, adding.
Yeah.
He did not,
That's good.
on the ground that this is already regulated by the zoning code, and we don't need to have that in 2 different places. That's his recommendation, it makes sense to me.
Okay, yeah, I have a note here that if there are desired changes to the signage provisions, I recommend amending the zoning code.
Yeah, okay,
So, not relevant for our discussion.
okay, so. The next thing is about the trees and shrub heights. He has a long note comment in the document, but he may.
There's a
provide the
shorter,
same thing.
there's a comment here. He says if there's inconsistency in the trees chapter and the zoning code relating to the height of hedges, intrusion over sidewalks. Also, I'm unsure whether there's a desire to permit tall hedges along walkways or to keep it at 4 feet, which is what the zoning code permits.
See, but then he says in his note here, the zoning code says, quote, hedges or other vegetation must be trimmed so as not to extend into the vertical plane of the edge of the sidewalk up to a height of 8 feet. So, what does it say?
Well, but that's 8 feet, that's when it's over, right? So there's also like, how
Hedges.
tall can they be right next to the sidewalk if they don't above? If they don't over,
Hedges don't overhang trees.
just can't.
Okay, all right, so maybe this is just, these different codes deal with this issue in different ways. Okay, got it. So he said, then the tree ordinance says, all trees within the lines of any public street shall be kept trimmed so that the minimum height over any public walk shall be 9 feet and the minimum height over any public road or street shall be 14 feet. He says that's what the tree ordinance says. Here we have 14 and 8, so they should be the same, right?
Sure, they should be the same.
Okay.
Agreed.
So, or do we need this here if there's already, should we just I mean, I would suggest that we should reference the tree ordinance, not state it separately here. That
I mean,
This
whatever
ordinance should
results
simply
in somebody-
reference, and you must comply with,
Okay, I mean, whatever, makes it easier for somebody who's trying to figure out what to do with their tree.
Well-
It doesn't really matter. So we're keeping the right,
generally then you don't have to remember to change things in 2 places,
true.
so.
So and so the height of hedges next to the sidewalk, do we have so.
He
they're
suggests
4
just say,
feet,
make it comply with the zoning code. Or he's-
which is 8 feet? Which is, I don't remember.
He says, I would recommend removing, well, his recommendation here is, I would recommend removing this from both codes and keeping it here, since it deals mainly with sidewalks. So his recommendation is do the opposite. Keep the regulations here in the sidewalk ordinance and then reference the sidewalk ordinance rules from the zoning code or from tree ordinance if need be. He
Okay.
recommends putting it all in here. So it doesn't matter. Wherever he wants to put it, I guess we just need to have a recommendation for what the rules should be.
All right.
So tree branches, it says 14 and 8 here already, it seems fine to me.
Yeah,
And so we've just removed that from the tree ordinance chapter altogether since it conflicts.
sure, if that's his recommendation. I'm happy to go ahead with that.
Okay. So then for hedges, bushes and shrubbery, obviously we would want the general language that they cannot extend into the vertical plane of the edge of the sidewalk, right? They can't intrude into the sidewalk. The question is, do we want a height limit on
Right.
hedges or not? So that was really the only substantive question, I think.
I mean, I don't see a reason to get people to take out their hedges.
Yeah, no, the
Well,
only
he suggested-
the question was that if there's
He said if it was in the zoning code, they could be grandfathered in. Right, like if you put, because zoning grandfathers in existing uses, but then if we put a hedge height restriction in this, in the sidewalk code, we would not be grandfathering in existing uses.
What's our height
That's what he
restriction?
says in this.
What's our height restriction on fences right now?
I think it's 4 feet, but I think that hedges are very different from fences. I do not want people to have to cut their hedges down. If they're not
Yeah, I agree.
spilling
So we're going
into the
to
sidewalk.
grandfather in the existing ones. The question is whether we want to put in any other kind of limit. I don't know. You have strong feelings?
no, it was only if there was an issue turning at an intersection. That was my only concern.
Like line of sight.
Clear
Yeah.
sight tracks,
Yeah, yeah.
intersection.
I mean, that's probably already in there because you probably can't put a tree there if you've got, I don't know. I mean, we can make sure that that's incorporated.
So your take was that we would recommend structuring this in a way that allowed us to grandfather in existing hedges, but not permit people to grow new hedges that were 7 or 8 feet
You know,
tall?
I really,
I
I don't have a strong opinion. So
I don't-
I think we might as well leave it. Just let people put in their hedges.
I'm good with hedges as long as they're not on people in the sidewalk.
Okay.
Very few people actually plant them far back enough for that to happen, but when they do, it looks really
Mhm.
nice.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
I don't feel like we need to tell people to keep their hedges 4 feet.
Okay.
My recommendation would be not have a height restriction on the shrubs and hedges. But what do you
That's fine.
disagree? So we
Let's
can
do
make
that.
that suggestion, okay. The next thing that he had comment on was, what is this? Is that a comment? Here's a comment. The very next paragraph. Oh no, that was my comment. So my comment on the next section was I'll just ask you now, 446.9, which is removal by borough upon non-compliance. That if there's an obstruction or incursion within the right of way, and they get it, it says 446-9, the property owner shall receive a notice, and then to be removed within 30 days or appealed. And that just seemed like a long time to let somebody be blocking the sidewalk. It's just hard for me to see how, an overgrown hedge would require 30 days to remedy.
Maybe that's boilerplate from like a abandoned car or something. That's how long you get for an abandoned car. I don't know.
Because we've never really enforced this, but it's a real problem for people who are trying to, particularly.
Okay.
So,
That's my question. See what
Yeah.
he says, if there's some reason for it.
okay,
Otherwise,
so we can ask him if we could shorten it up. What do you think would be a reasonable amount of time for somebody to be able to clear the overgrown hedge for recycled?
A week. A week.
I hear a week. All right, maybe we'll propose that to John, see if he has, if that's not, if that's just not normal. He has a note in section 446.16, which is permit requirements, fees, and issuance, just that we need to just check this to make sure that it's in line with our current permits. But I don't think we need to do that now. I think that's a job we need to do with the office.
We can always add that in later, edit the amount. So you
Yeah.
can change it from time to time.
He has some other questions about whether we have, in that same section, about whether we need to sort of harmonize this with our fee schedule and whether we have renewal fees. So I assume I will let him work that out with you in the office because that's not really a council issue. He's not asking us to decide something. So, yeah, he has a note, but that's, I'm not sure why he has a note. So, I don't know. In section 446.22, which is a very, very, part of that very, very large section. It says, you can't put construction materials or any kind of building construction stuff. It can't occupy more than 1/3 of the width of an improved road surface or obstruct any sidewalks so that free passage of not less than 4 feet in width shall at all times be maintained. And he has a note on the 4 saying current standard. And I don't know if his indication is that we should be changing that or.
Well, that's what we said for the sidewalk diameter is 4 feet. Right?
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's, I'm not sure why there's a note there, if anybody knows what that, okay. I don't have any,
Maybe it was something else.
I don't have a problem with that, that seems like a reasonable standard.
Let's keep it to the same.
What else does he have here? I have a bunch of notes, but they're not about this last time. Yeah,
And then appeals, 446.36.
Right.
To be appealed.
exactly. Yeah, we have to decide who the appeal should go to.
I'll listen to his recommendation. I don't know.
Right,
What do you
so
think?
Rob, he said like once this is revised, like what we need to decide at any violation of this chapter, so it'll be any of the sidewalk or outdoor dining, with the whole thing. If somebody were cited and they were found in violation, who should they appeal it to? And he said it would be basically either council or the UCC appeals board. My instinct is to say the UCC
Yeah.
appeals board
why
is the
not?
right,
We have an
is the
appeals
right,
board.
Our meeting
is
is
the
the
right entity to
Yeah.
vote.
Sounds good. Let's recommend that.
They're much better suited to do that than we are. Okay. That was the end of his comments on the document. Was there other stuff in the email that you picked up on?
No,
Okay.
it's covered.
I did have one comment I picked on while looking at this. In section, that's the technical, in section 446-20, and let's see, F, it has C and E. C makes reference to like a pavement standards
Yeah.
that are outdated. So that new standard would be PennDOT Hub 408, and it's super paved asphalt. The ID2 is like an old standard.
FC?
Yeah,
So
FC.
ID2 is also, okay.
Right, so basically that could be, and this would be consistent, we already have, our road opening permit is already reflecting the correct
Right.
use, so this should just reflect, we could just eliminate that to be consistent with Department of Transportation 408 and just drop that last piece. of the
Stop
sentence
for
there.
it. We don't have to say which section.
All right, and then that section E.
No, drop top with whatever. Just drop the last clause of that.
Yeah, so drop top
I would-
1-inch ID wearing course.
I would drop material, all right, so material restoration shall be 6 inches bituminous concrete base course. I would drop that meeting requirements of section 308 to say meeting the requirements of PennDOT Department of Transportation 408. And just leave it at that.
Okay. There was another place where there was a specific, at least one more place.
Yeah, and then
Section 408
E,
cited.
then that like dot E, I would just drop that whole thing because if they're complying with 408, then that's kind of
So we'll eliminate clause E, or whatever.
Yeah.
Subsection
the subsection E.
I'm gonna lose side of it. So C,
C, eliminate last clause. E, eliminate entire.
did you notice the other place where that specific section of 408 was cited? It's cited in another place, and I wondered if you wanted to do the same thing there.
Yeah, it's cited,
That's fine, that's about backfill. So PennDOT Hub 408 is their overall construction standards. So that's fine, and that's, the other section's backfill, that's no problem.
No, in backfilling, you're fine with.
That's fine,
The number R.
Yeah, I just want to drop,
RC is
I would
fine.
want to drop the section
Got it.
305 and the reference to ID2 in that one number there.
Wait, what? I'm sorry, that, the one we just.
Oh, yeah,
SC,
yeah, just in that one,
You
yeah.
got that, okay, the other one's fine, perfect. Okay, thank you. I will make a note of that, and I mean, since I've been doing this, I'll just put everything together that we talked about and have you guys review it.
Thank you.
And then we can send it all to John, like all in one, so that he doesn't have to get. Is that what you want me?
Yes.
Should I do that?
Please
That-
do.
That'll just make it
And
easier.
taking all minutes.
Okay.
Go for it. Any other comments on the sidewalk maintenance ordinance? Thank you, Michelle, for being there. All right, next potential action item is outdoor dining, decorative barricades, and raised pedestrian crosswalks. So what Samantha is proposing is that the committee get guidance from the police and public works department to ensure that any barricade implemented meets the main goals of protecting community safety. And then there are two potential kinds of barricades to be considered. One is a sort of a standard oval barricade with a banner on it or a cover over it. And then another is sort of a decorative railing. It's more like a decorative railing that stands on some of that decoration. I hope everybody can look in the packet. We've got a couple of images here. The other item to consider is whether the borough wishes to purchase and own the barricades or if it wants to work with community partners and local business owners to provide them. What are our thoughts here? Anybody have strong opinions? First on the look of the two different options.
Well, I mean, I strongly prefer the decorative one rather than the traditional cover, but I mean, there may be significant
Yeah.
price or, availability differences, so, and plus it's just my opinion, so.
Well, I also prefer the decorative. I prefer the second option to the one.
Yeah,
with
the
cover.
second is superior.
So we all agree. So let's, unless the pricing is really out of whack, we're going to recommend looking into the second option. No. So what do you think? So if the borough owned these, can you see other uses for these besides sort of the sidewalk dining? Like if sidewalk dining ends, is there something we can do with these?
They could certainly be used, to shut down, uptown, for different activities that happen up there, from Dickens Fest and, the hunt and everything. There could definitely be use for them around town, if we owned them.
So in this second picture, we're talking about owning just these flower boxes, basically?
No, the barrier
Or the
behind
railing.
flower boxes. Yeah.
So I took that picture as well.
Oh, okay. So it's like a wooden...
That is, I think those were installed largely by the stores. So
Yeah.
they kind of vary as you go along. So they have the planter boxes, and then like that first section is like kind of a raised platform to match the sidewalk. But then you go down to like the pizza place, and like you step down the curb, and it's really just like the planter boxes.
Yeah, it looks like the Swarthmore Business Association or Business District sort of got it together and worked.
They did. They all kind of collectively came up and installed that.
I mean, I wonder if they could provide guidance to RMBA.
Yeah,
if they wanted to.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could be in a supportive role.
No, if it's just flower boxes,
I mean, we're handing we are funding the NBA's some of their stuff here, so it just be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they should be involved in the discussion.
I'm sad to just, I like the idea of having community partners and local businesses sort of take the lead on
Okay.
this
Yeah.
and suggest that there's a contact that the Swarthmore, we could perhaps put
Mhm.
and in touch with them, and that could be a first
No,
step.
I mean, I'm the engineer there, so.
Yeah. Just say, yeah, but if you know the right person who's.
I think Samantha, so I think I take that picture, and then Samantha had actually spoke to Jane as the manager.
She's on it, of course, yeah.
Okay,
So
good.
there is already, if that is something you're going down further, I think she's already kind of international town.
Okay, good. Well, also remember Refugia had offered planters at one
right.
point, and we didn't take them up on it for some reason.
I don't remember that discussion.
But they may be interested,
Yeah,
given how, you know, they may be interested in doing that.
yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like our recommendation is going to be to reach out to MBA and work with them on something more decorative than the standard barriers.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like Swarthmore's like already been will. They've already figured all of this out. See if they can help us figure out how they,
Put in something pretty like that.
what they
Okay.
used, you know. kind of
They do have a
materials.
business association there
Yeah.
that you could talk to.
All right. And then the other option was the raised pedestrian crosswalks. Well, anything more to say about the barriers? I think reach out to MBA, work with them on a joint plan. Is the committee's suggestion here, right? Yeah. All right. The raised pedestrian crosswalks. So to implement raised pedestrian crosswalks, I mean, it's not the memo, the borough would need to do adequate traffic study and design, including stormwater management. As a temporary step, she recommends the installation of rubber raised pedestrian crossings once that study and design is completed, as pictured below. All right, so what would we need to do? What kind of work?
So here's my first, so can I just ask where it was this considered? So I just note there, she said somewhere along Haverford, they're
Yeah,
considering.
probably at the maybe at the end, the entrance to, like near the liquor store, that sort of the start,
Circle.
between Station Circle and the whatever far crosswalk there is near
The erstwhile
at
piazza.
Greeks or whatever, yeah.
Tell me there's that, but then, so there's
It's like
that
the
mid-block one.
3 or 4 block
Yeah,
stretch.
yeah.
Yeah, probably not the mid-block one. Well, I mean, it could.
Well, I'm just trying to think, so there's the intersections have crosswalks, and there's that one mid-block one at the liquor store, Station Circle.
Yeah, so probably that Station Circle one is the first one, right? The one at the liquor, the one at Station Circle, and then the other ones are, I mean, just at the sort of the entrance to the business district and then the end of it as far as possible, just as kind of.
So I think kind of the gist of where I go. So the borough has, so this would be considered traffic calming. The borough has an established traffic calming procedure, which basically takes the idea and then puts it up for review internally or involve with the engineer. My initial thoughts on this is what exactly where, and then the considerations are anytime you put obstruction of the road, stormwater, you don't want to obstruct stormwater. That's something to consider. The next one, that is a SEPTA bus route. So you got to make sure your buses can go over it. So that might be some, I suspect SEPTA might want to know that they're going to be going in along the route. And then the other one is you're talking about crosswalks and make sure you're not interfering with ADA accommodations crossing the road. Will be the others. So I think it's not a no, but they spend a little time thinking it's working out.
These are all in the nature of portlet removable, right, for the purpose of plowing, right? And we can get them out of the way, or can plows go over these?
I wouldn't feel too comfortable to plow over them.
Generally, I generally see those temporary ones removed in the winter.
Yeah.
So like in my neighborhood, there was a street where they had speed humps. They were temporary. They started taking them out in the winter.
Yeah.
And eventually they put asphalt in. But
So what's the advantage of doing these rubber temporary installations? I mean, since we're going to do the study, do we need to do that step, or can we go ahead?
I mean, not necessarily. So is the intention of this is you're trying to improve pedestrian crossing or slow down traffic, or so you're trying to make it a more visible crossing or just generally more inviting?
Well, I mean, there's some people, so we have to periodically repaint those, right? I mean, let's get repainted
Each
yearly.
year. Yep.
Yeah, and there are still some cars that don't see them or don't understand them, that just blow right through them. So it would be partly pedestrian safety, partly traffic calming. I think those would be the primary goals here. I mean, there's it's part of the comprehensive plan to look at our sidewalks and try to enhance the visibility, enhance the sort of protectiveness for pedestrians where possible. And these are probably the most heavily used in the borough. So.
I mean, as far as the location, so Haverford Avenue is a major thoroughfare through the borough, so that's true, but it's also at the same time a very pedestrian shop, downtown district heavy stretch through there. So I mean, that is a location where traffic calming does make sense. You just need to make sure you spend just enough time at the beginning of it to make sure, before you just go ahead and start stalling.
Well, also, in public health and safety, we've been talking about so many traffic complaints that have been coming to our committee. And our chief has acknowledged that we don't have the police we don't have the police hours to manage so many different traffic problems. So my sense is that as a committee, we're going to start talking about traffic calming as well. So I mean, if there's a way we can coordinate these discussions.
Well, I think the question right now is, should we proceed further with this idea? And that's going to be presumably getting a price tag for the study, unless it's something that can be done kind of immediately. Price tag for what it would take to do the traffic study, the stormwater study, and the actual devices, plus however many hours it would take to talk SEPTA into approving it. If we need to somehow get SEPTA's approval, I don't know. I mean, it's our road, but it is a separate.
It is, but they do run buses over it. So ultimately, they need to be able to drive a bus successfully over it.
Okay. So should we just leave it at that, gather more information about it and come back to us with?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that what you said, Rob, makes a lot of sense insofar as if we were to move forward with this, it's noted right here that there's an initial temporary step to use the rubber-raised pedestrian crossing. Ergo, if it became permanent, it would be then freed up to try in other areas potentially.
Okay.
So it may not be a one use away. It may be something that could be tried and piloted in other traffic calming.
I mean, can you reuse these? Or do they have to be the exact same? Is that right with?
So they come in segmental systems where they're like, you put together 6 units for the width of your road.
Okay.
So, and then like end caps and then just units that go across.
So, Jeff, do you see issues with plowing? They have to be removed for plowing.
Well, that could be, that's a nice idea. It might be a cost-effective way of dealing with some of our traffic complaints.
Segmented movable.
Yeah, I would agree that if we owned, a few of them, then all year we could just kind of pop them at different places in town that we're getting, the most complaints from.
Right.
Well, but the suggestion is we need stormwater review and traffic.
Well, so when I say stormwater review, you want to make sure if you put something in the road, can water still flow around it, kind of thing. It's not. I say this from experience because I watched them do it in my neighborhood. They put in speed cushions and didn't do any stormwater and it just started flowing out around into the road. So the answer might be you have enough drainage upstream of it, it's not going to be an issue, but just something to consider before you put them down.
Okay.
Do you have a sense, just ballpark, of how much it would cost, like one of these?
To install or to
buy? I
don't know what the cost of it.
I'll do a little.
I'm just curious because we've talked about other traffic calming solutions in public health and safety, and this might be a better price.
Well, let's get some more information on it. Okay. Any more comments on the potential raised crosswalks? Great. So we'll expect to hear more about that once staff have had time to research it. All right, next item, we've got current borough projects. So stormwater bump outs. Again, I'm just reading from the memos here. We've got contract paperwork. There's various documents that need to be returned to the county. But stuff's moving along with the
I don't have anything else. I know she was waiting for the grant agreement, but it sounded like she has just received the paperwork from the state. So.
Okay. The Haverford Avenue stormwater project, we're still for March, scheduled for next March because nationwide
everything.
material shortage, yeah.
Mhm.
So skate park, so this is the, all right, so memo from Samantha is that signage has been installed notifying the public of the skate park. Public Works Department has started transferring the skate equipment. I mean, I see the skate equipment now. The parking lot, yeah, is currently, some of the parking lot is currently being used for that. So how much has been brought over? Is that everything? Or?
So everything is here.
Okay, good.
There's, we occupied the back corner as well in the 201 parking lot.
Okay.
So
I didn't see that.
we have about 10 or 12 pieces up there. And then three or four parking spots out here, and then half of our yard is filled with it. So I met with the skate park folks this morning, just to kind of, because some of the equipment is so large that it's going to have to be assembled where it sits. So we need to get them to generate like a site map for us, and then we can work off the map, sand and paint the equipment and take it out and install it in its final place. So, in a perfect world, we won't have to plow snow, and we can have a couple of months to concentrate on this inside the shop and roll it out in spring. But ultimately, soon as that sun is shining in spring, I want this to be operational.
I had a thought. I was just gonna ask you, it might be a completely crazy idea, so if so, just tell me to be quiet. But you already have this stuff and you're working on it, like, which I wasn't aware you were going to do this much work on it, it's a lot. So what do you think about the idea of just asking a contractor who does closed cell insulation, like, they spray that stuff on in parking garages on the steel deck? What would it be worth getting a price to see what it would cost to get them to come in and put like a half an inch in the underside? I mean, it doesn't be perfect, but I mean, it would probably dampen the sound significantly.
Yeah, I've read that, and I've also read that if you sheet, any open areas with, with like a half-inch plywood, then that can also help kind of keep the sound in. So yeah, I mean, I'll do some more research on just ways to kind of get the sound down a bit, because I know that is going to be our #1 complaint.
Okay. So
But we also have the operation hours in place, don't we? That it wouldn't be open past a certain time.
yeah,
I'm not sure that we actually.
we can set the hours. I mean, we have some time
Yeah,
to
comes
figure
back.
the hours, but yes,
We'll
we're not
leave it
going.
go. Yeah.
I think it's similar to basketball, and we don't want to go. Well, there's no light. It's not true. I don't know what kind
The
of light
hours
they
might
have.
need to be a little
I mean,
bit
it has
more
to be
conservative than
safe.
basketball hours.
Yeah, it has to be safe. If there's no light on that
Yeah.
space, it can't go till all hours. I mean, it's behind a gate that can be locked. So,
Absolutely.
Oh, right.
yeah.
That was key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and I know there's going to be a public comment later on about that, but thanks,
Yeah,
Chuck,
thank
for
you.
the update, and it's I mean, it seems like the parking lot here is
So
fairly, so I didn't notice the spots that were taken up by the equipment, so.
the
hopefully
Samantha
that's
did
not
great
gonna-
prior to opening the skate park. I know we have some time, but the borough will need to decide on rules per those required from our liability insurance, install the rules, signage, secure the added liability coverage, and decide on the level of observation. So I just think we probably should figure out who's, is that public safety want to take the lead on that? Or infrastructure?
I've been talking about it.
Samantha,
Rob, do you want it?
John is going to probably need
Skateboard,
to
skate park rules and regulations.
practice.
I think they can live here.
We did the other rules, the park rules and regs. We did that in this committee, right? Didn't we set the?
Yes, we
finalize
did.
that?
We did. So I think that,
I mean, it would be roughly the same, wouldn't it? If it was
I mean, a
like-
lot of this is
Some
probably
ideas.
is driven by the insurance, the liability cover, and maybe.
all right, so discussion will be in here.
Okay.
Discussion will be in infrastructure, and we'll get some advice from our local experts who are also advising on the layout of the park.
Yeah, I think we should just give it some thought and then put it on the agenda for the future.
Sure. Once we know when we'll be able to launch it, make sure to have it in place before then.
Okay.
Do you need anything else from us about this?
Unless you want to help sand and paint, you know.
Yeah, not much
Well, if you need
unfortunately.
volunteers, I'm sure we could find volunteers.
Volunteers.
There are many
we can get some
families really
volunteers.
excited about this, so,
That's true, there are many young
you know,
judges.
if you need volunteers, let us know.
And the last item on the borough projects list, anything else about the skate park? I think we're all excited to see the things finally appear.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, moving forward with it, so thanks. Norwood Bridge, do you have any,
Other
Updates on the
than,
process?
so I don't have anything specifically, other than I saw in Samantha's memo, it summarizes kind of where they stand, kind of ongoing agreements. They resubmitted plans back in to Amtrak, and that the first, good news, first parts of the contract as far as like inspection stuff are starting to come forward. But I think there's just a lot, it's still in the agreements, going through all the agreements and approvals from Amtrak.
yeah, it looks like in January, we're gonna have a resolution to allow PennDOT to put out a bid for construction inspection services, and then we'll select an inspector. And then we'll be putting out a bid for construction next year. That's, Samantha's saying summer 2022,
It's
so.
just excruciating, isn't it?
Well, nonetheless, that's encouraging.
Spending a career working with some of these institutions that are involved in this project, yes,
All right.
it is.
So keep your eyes posted for next year. All right, so any other items for the committee? Anything I've missed, Michelle, that you're?
Only on that bridge memo, and I was kind of a part of, the art presentations, that the architect's coming back to council in January with a design.
Oh, I didn't see
Oh,
that.
good.
Great.
For the architectural lettering.
In January? Oh, great.
Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the January council work session, the architect will have a design
Oh,
recommendation
great.
in lieu of art. So
Oh,
we'll
good.
consider their proposal.
Excellent. Hey, I have one item that's on the agenda. It's kind of a new item. It kind of just popped up this weekend that I wanted to just bring to the table. Is that all right? Do you have time?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So I know we've got the keypads in on the community building and stuff, but I'm not sure what the policy is for. And we sort of talked about like what would have, like who has the ability to get in, who has codes and such forth. What happened over the weekend was there was a community organization that needed to get in there to get some stuff that was stored in the, which is the east wing, the west wing, my sense of direction is so bad, east wing. And it took like an hour and a half to be able to get in because so first the house phone wasn't available, and then they went to go see the mayor who was like, wait, we have keypads? I didn't know anything about that. Why don't you call, let's call John, who said, well, let's get Officer Dutton went over. He's like, everybody's trying their keys. Like, well, oh, I have a key. Oh, my key doesn't work. So Officer Dutton had no idea how to get in. And so then it went back to, I forget, I don't know, it was a whole hour and a half saga, but eventually Officer McCabe was like, oh, we have a fob back at the station. I'll go back and get that. I can override the keypad. My point being, this is kind of a good tabletop exercise for what happens if somebody, there's a strange odor coming from in there, or somebody calls in and say, hey, a child got trapped in there on Friday. How do we get in? We don't have to take an axe to the door. And so I just wanted to just put that out there and just say that that's how long it took. It wasn't an emergency situation, luckily, but what would the protocol be?
Sure,
Should the
so-
mayor have a code? Should it need, we need to have a protocol for how to get in there in the event that, that something like that happens.
Yeah, so I'm still working with Samantha. She kind of started when everything was still closed down. So we didn't make any codes, we didn't issue key fobs, and actually right now, the only locks that had been changed were the library portion. So both the east and west wings still can be accessed by the old keys.
I guess I'd have to, maybe they were just trying to go into the library. I don't know why they wouldn't have tried the outside door, but the officers were
Yeah.
not able to get in with their keys.
Yeah, so they should be. We didn't change anything, and you were actually over there, Jeff, right? Recently. We know that borough employees have been issued key fobs, so then everyone should have access to that, all doors. Like I said, we didn't change any of the locks on both sides because I think Samantha's still working on what that means, the agreements. Girl Scout troop leaders did get assigned access codes per the agreement Samantha made with their group leaders. And then I think we're still waiting on some more decisions to be made of who, when. I think, in January, when we installed the same system on this building, more key fobs will be issued and locks will actually be changed. But right now we're still in that middle time of you can access with both the old key system and the key fobs.
Okay, I don't know why they were not able to get in with their keys.
Yeah.
I mean, you said they would have gone to an exterior door, you'd think.
John Gallagher contacted me, Chief Gallagher contacted me on Saturday, and I said, your key fob will work on it. He said, okay, great, it works, no problem.
Key fob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I was talking about physical keys.
Yeah, the actual physical keys that were for the doors are still working for the doors.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that sounds like office is aware of this and is working.
Yeah,
through
I
all
just
that,
wanted to
so-
point that out, so make sure that there is like a protocol in place if somebody needed to get in. But, it sounds like the police were not able to get into that building for, once they were made aware of it, probably was from now on. And the house was not available, so I just think we'll make sure that they get that. So, okay.
It sounds like it's being addressed. I mean, it is a problem. It sounds like people are working on it to make sure it does not remain a problem. So confident that it'll be sorted out. I don't know, it makes me a little nervous that these key locks and things. I haven't been anywhere that's used security like that.
I mean,
so
if it's a real
it's my first
emergency,
time.
there's always an axe, but, obviously you don't want
So
to
avoid
resort to
the
that
axe.
unless
Let's
absolutely
avoid the axe. If
necessary.
you've been talking to the fire company, let's avoid the axe. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay,
Thanks.
let's go to public comment. Anybody on the Zoom wish to make a public comment?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Carol Marie.
So I would like to thank Michelle for mentioning my comment about the bike lane being confusing and dangerous. Today at 10 o'clock this morning, there was a person driving down Haverford Avenue, stopped abruptly, backed up back down the street to go down Conway, because when a driver sees a one-way sign or do not enter wrong way, you stop. And I think the way the sign you were mentioning, angling it so it's not directly at traffic may be a solution, but it is very, very confusing. Also, you mentioned about the green crosswalks. I had no idea what a green crosswalk is, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So just to let you know, you say it's a universal bike. I had no idea what it was, and I'm not the only one on that one. I also want to comment about the outdoor dining. Are there standards for width of sidewalk? Because tables are placed haphazardly. They block the sidewalk. You can't get a stroller down there, much less a wheelchair. So I feel there needs to be a standard of how wide. I know people move tables around so they can have a larger group, but it does impede the sidewalk, which is a safety issue. I don't want to be walking my stroller in the middle of the street. I also want to ask you or mention about the snow emergency routes and the snow signs. If you all recall, Facebook explodes every time there's a snow because it says, well, when do we move our car? Is it a coating? Is it an inch? Is it 4 inches? So if you're rewriting the code, make it really clear, because half the time you don't know if you should move your car or not, because you don't know if it's, you move your car and then someone parks in your space because there's no need to move your car. So that's something I would like to suggest. And then when you're talking about bushes, how are you going to enforce that? You're going to tell people you need to trim your bushes, because there are so many. And then Fred, you mentioned grandfathering in bushes that are there. Well, there's a bush on Essex Avenue. There's a bush on a house on Price Avenue, and they leave about maybe 12 inches of walking space between the bush that's overgrown onto the sidewalk. So is this going to be a universal enforcement on the bushes and the trees and the overgrown hedges? And then while we're talking about enforcement, the skate park, I hosted a skate park for Narberth Ambulance this summer during their bike race. And I got to tell you, you need to slam down real fast and real hard on rules right away, because the guys that were there, that were the demonstrators and the kids that came, they couldn't care less about rules. So they need to be enforced hard and fast. and know that there is no, well, gray area on this one. Otherwise, you're going to lose control real fast. I've been a proponent of having a skate park, but there has to be hard and fast rules that have to get enforced. And then who's going to enforce them? And then my last question I have is, has there been an agreement or conversations with Wonder Springs for 201 for a portion of the property, the building, or all of the property? When after council meeting, there was a little meeting outside, and it seemed to the person was alluding that there has been conversations, agreements, or understandings between Wonder Spring and the board of Wonder Spring and the borough. So I want to know, has there been any conversation or any agreements going on?
All right, let me address some of these quickly. So the sidewalk dining, the businesses are to leave a 4-foot path. So the current sidewalk dining ordinance requires businesses to leave a 4-foot path, which should be enough for probably 2 strollers to go side by side. But nonetheless, I'm hopeful you can get your stroller through the 4-foot path. The sidewalk.
Is that enforced? Will that be enforced? Or is that a process right now?
That is not currently in the legislation as far as I know. It will be enforced if there are complaints made. So,
But no, it's in the legislation.
is it, I mean, it's not.
It's in the it's part of the borough code right now. It's been since the 70s.
I'm not sure if it currently exists.
I don't think it
Yeah, but what we're going to pass on the sidewalk includes that rule. And yes, I mean, the police will be empowered to enforce that if there's a complaint. Similarly with the overgrown sidewalks, we're not going to, if you have a hedge that's currently covering most of the sidewalk, that is not going to be grandfathered in. That is going to need to be dealt with. And Public Works will be walking around Narberth next year, making sure that the sidewalks are up to the standards in the ordinance. We are setting, we've set rules for what the where the hedge can be in terms of overgrowth of the sidewalk and the standards for the sidewalks, and they will be enforced starting next year.
Are you talking also about broken and disrepair and uneven sidewalks?
Yes, yes, that's in there as well. And finally, Wonder Spring, there's been no discussion that I'm aware of with Wonder Spring. I mean, they were at the public meeting. You saw the CEO and one of the board members were at our last council meeting, and that's the only time I've met them. So.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
But they sent the letter. You saw the letter.
That's true. They did send a letter that was included in the meeting packet. That was a public letter.
Obviously, they're paying attention because the letter said that their board talked about what we had talked about in our last meeting, that they said that they're interested in that idea. That is all that I know.
Now, we do have talks with them, because they're a tenant of the building, so we have like lease talks with them, but that's sort of business as usual. There's been no.
We don't even, I mean, your list does.
It gets sent, so we have a building manager who deals with them, and then occasionally things get escalated to us. But I haven't talked directly with Wonder Spring since I've been on council. So.
Okay, there seemed to be a conversation that there's an agreement pending or agreement in the works with something with the building.
I'm not sure what you heard, but I wasn't part of that discussion. I don't know what that's about. I'm sorry. You should ask whoever was having that discussion for more details.
Okay.
All right. Any other public? Thank you, Carmery. Any other public comment from Zoom? Is that something?
Yeah, Shift had their hand raised.
I'm sorry, I have to go for
Okay.
2:30 meeting.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, Shift.
Shift, can you hear us?
That's Kimberly, right?
Yeah, it's probably Kimberly. Kimberly, are you there? Do you have a comment for us? We can't hear you. Okay, let's give her a moment. Kimberly, if you can fix your technical difficulties, we'll bring you on. I did have a public comment from Tom Grady that he wished to be incorporated. It's about the skate park. Dear Infrastructure Committee, I am writing about the proposed pilot installation of a skateboard park at the borough's present tennis courts. I understand that used metal skateboarding equipment has been donated to the borough, and I had the opportunity to view a portion of the equipment as it presently sits outside the fence to the tennis courts. I've attached a picture here too. Putting aside for the moment that 1, the equipment is rusty, 2, far beyond the present standard of use, and 3, was never recommended by the Parks and Recreation Committee as part of any comprehensive park plan on the proposed site, has your committee reviewed or shared any information whatsoever with regard to the noise level of using metal skateboarding ramps and platforms, as opposed to the current state-of-the-art use of cement ramps and platforms that diminish noise levels with nearby neighbors, particularly the residents of Conway Avenue or the Narberth community? He attached a YouTube video. This is a YouTube video that demonstrates the noise associated with metal skateboarding equipment while demonstrating the low noise use of cement in building a skate park. Kindly note that I have no objection to the creation of a skate park for our town. However, I would request that it be done right and within present construction standards with the use of sufficient resources incorporating current noise reduction and safety equipment. Thank you, Tom Grady, 23 Windsor Avenue. So I think Jeff pointed out that they are looking into some use of plywood as a noise reduction and other possibilities for noise reduction. And this is a pilot project as well, so should it prove to be overly noisy, we will
With the
proceed
lock.
accordingly. Yeah, project
With the lock.
Yeah. So we are looking into noise reduction. Borough Hall is also right near this proposed project. The library is right near, so the borough definitely has motivation to make sure that this is not overly noisy so that it doesn't disrupt the business of the borough as well. All right, let's see if Shift is able to make a comment here.
Hello?
We hear you now.
Oh, great. Sorry about the name on my Zoom screen. I couldn't quite figure out how to change it on my Chromebook. But Kimberly Bezak, I'm just speaking on behalf of Narberth Cycling Club. I very much appreciate the conversation about the Wheels on Haverford bicycle pilot. And I'm very grateful to Public Works for all of the time and effort that they're putting into supporting this project. I know we had expressed some concerns about the hay bales from day one with this plan, and we were sort of forced into this because we didn't have the appropriate Public Works equipment for sweeping. So again, just expressing, thanks to Public Works for the extra burden. We just want to emphasize that we are here and available in a volunteer capacity to help in any way with this pilot. A few things to add. As far as the cross bikes, the pilot is a great educational opportunity for the community. So if the borough could give us permission, we would be more than happy to go out there with our own paint and stencils and mark the cross bikes, just to provide an opportunity to educate the community about what they're for. Because there is a lot of confusion that these are crosswalks, and I wonder if that is perhaps the reason we're seeing lots of runners, walkers, people walking dogs in the lane. Just a quick comment about the speed monitoring. We had recommended that to the borough prior to the start of the project. However, Samantha had mentioned that the borough's speed monitoring equipment was out for repairs and was not back in time to capture speed monitoring prior to the installation of the bicycle pilot. If I could make a suggestion, I would say that if the speed monitoring equipment is back while the pilot is occurring, we could put that out to gather some monitoring data during, and then perhaps put it back out there when the pilot is removed to capture that pre-pilot speeding data that we were not able to capture prior to the pilot being installed. And then the last thing is we have heard similar feedback from the community about that do not enter signage at Essex. So we're happy to hear Michelle also and Carol Marie also mention that. So if there's anything that we can do to help with recommending relocation for that, we're happy to do it. One last thing to just mention, our experience working on this pilot has certainly been different than working on Wheels on Windsor with DVRPC. With our experience with the WOW program, improvements to the pilot were made as a way to inform a future design for a permanent installation. So I would hope that if the borough does have the capacity to make some design enhancements, it will just help further refine a final plan for the borough to consider for a future permanent installation.
All right. Thank you, Kimberly. Not sure we have any response that we need to make to Kimberly's comments.
As far as permission to paint the bike symbol in the green crosswalks, what would need to happen?
We just need to authorize
who gets
it.
permission?
Yeah, so just quite, is it proposed, we're talking like the bike symbol like in line with the green? I just want to make sure it's not going to be conflicting with like the traffic on the long road.
Well, what would be your recommendation if we were to put a bike stencil in there? Which way should it face?
Your bike symbols are facing the direction that bikes are moving.
Okay. All right, so it would be...
Yeah, and just to say, that's certainly what I was envisioning as well, like either between the green zebra markings or centered inside the green zebra markings and facing in the direction of the bikes crossing the bike crosswalk.
All right, so I guess the concern is that we're creating sort of visual clutter that will persist after the bike lane is done. Can we just cover it with black paint at that point? I mean, is there if we decide we're going to not, I don't know. What's our option for once the project is over and if we decide we need to cover that up?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is an option, just to spray,
Black paint over it. The way to eradicate pavement markings is either black paint over it or edge it off the road.
Okay.
Black paint being a much simpler solution.
Does that seem like a complicated? All right, let's do it.
The paint that, just to say, the paint that the cycling club does have is a temporary paint, which typically goes away, within 1 to 3 months. So that's what we would plan to use if we were given permission.
Do we have any issues with this? Public Works or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think it's reinforcing.
Okay.
Reinforce that.
No, I would just say, just please get in touch and we'll give you folks some cones, so you're, at least a little bit shielded from traffic out there.
Should Public Works be doing this rather than volunteers? I don't know. It's a little unusual.
Realistically, I would feel more comfortable if one of our trucks was there.
It should probably be a Public Works truck.
Yeah, sure.
So let's say this is not really a volunteer thing. Let's ask. Why don't we do it with temporary paint?
Okay.
Let's do this officially with temporary paint. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kimberly. I think we're set here. Anything else? It's getting late. Apologize for moving longer than usual, but I think we're all set. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned to